definition on KBTX, your news leader. This is News 3 at 6.
It's been nearly 3 days since an intense fire broke out at the Knights of Columbus Hall in Bryan, a fire that killed 2 local firefighters and left 2 others fighting for their lives.
Support is coming in from all around the world, and a memorial service has now been planned to honor the 2 men who lost their lives in the line of duty. There have been some emotional moments at the University of Texas Medical Branch burn unit in Galveston. This is a picture sent in from a viewer, Linda, of the scene outside a hospital room where many of those closest to the injured are waiting for updates. Hospital officials say it could be a long recovery for Ricky Manti and Mitch Moran. Late this afternoon, UTMB said both men were listed in critical condition.
Bryan firefighter Ricky Manti has been with the department for 5 years. His colleagues describe him as a firefighter who was dependable and an enthusiastic member of the force. 21-year-old probationary Bryan firefighter Mitch Moran has been with the Bryan Fire Department for about 11 months. His coworkers describe him as a dedicated worker who was eager to learn.
It is being called the worst tragedy in the history of the Bryan Fire Department.
And here's a look at how the events unfolded Friday night. And the Bryan Fire Department says the first calls came in just after 11 Friday night that a large fire was burning at the Knights of Columbus Hall at the intersection of Groesbeck Street and Palisada Drive.
Firefighters, including Lieutenant Eric Wallace, entered the building to make sure no one was inside, and the roof eventually collapsed. A team of 3 firefighters, Lieutenant Gregory Pickard and firefighter Ricky Manti and probationary firefighter Mitch Moran, went inside to rescue Wallace, who said he was low on oxygen and needed help. All 4 suffered severe burns. Wallace died at the scene. Pickard, Manti, and Moran were flown to the University of Texas Medical Branch burn unit in Galveston. Now, one of the firefighters who died and 2 critically injured were members of a rapid intervention team going in to help Lieutenant Eric Wallace, who was in distress. He died in that fire.
And tonight he is being remembered for his sacrifice, love for his family, and dedication to helping people after being killed doing the job he loved. News 3's Clay Falls joins us live from what's left of the Knights of Columbus Hall in Bryan. And Clay, you got to speak to friends of Lieutenant Wallace today.
Yes, John and Meredith, and it's still a very active scene tonight as investigators try to figure out exactly what happened during this deadly fire Friday night. And if you take a look behind me, you can still see that equipment and even hoses have been left behind as part of that investigation. And there's even a makeshift memorial off to the side. Friends and fellow firefighters say Lieutenant Eric Wallace loved his family, faith, and job. What started out as an ordinary structure fire turned into the Bryan Fire Department's deadliest day late Friday night. 36-year-old Eric Wallace died after he became trapped inside the burning building.
There was nothing we ever went into that spooked him. He didn't get scared. He didn't get excited.
Lieutenant Gerald Burnett with the Bryan Fire Marshal's office was close friends with Wallace, and both started with the department in 2000. Wallace leaves behind a wife and 5 kids. Last summer, News 3 covered a fundraiser for his infant daughter Izzy, who was born prematurely.
He loved his kids, and that's a legacy right there.
Last year, Wallace helped Burnett and his wife when they had a double blowout out of town.
Eric showed up in a heartbeat to help us, offered his spare tire, offered his fix-a-flat, offered his sweat, and got us back on the road. He was always there to help.
I interviewed Wallace in July 2010 on a story about drivers not yielding properly to emergency vehicles on every single call.
They either don't know the law or what they need to do, or they're on their cell phone is the biggest problem, or their stereo's up too loud.
He was a very strong Christian man as well. My wife was telling me the other day how pleased she was that the conversations he'd had lately were very faith-driven, very much.
A visitation is planned for Lieutenant Wallace Wednesday from 6 to 8 p.m. at Adams Funeral Home in Marlin. A funeral will take place at 10 the next morning at First Baptist Church of Bryan. A funeral procession will follow with burial at Hillcrest Cemetery, 1 mile east of Marlin, Texas. And we're also told that Lieutenant Wallace was also very passionate about teaching fire safety to kids. He was doing that just last week. Reporting live in Bryan, Clay Falls, News 3.
Okay, thanks so much, Clay. Lieutenant Gregory Pickard is also being remembered as a man dedicated to his job. He spent more than half of his life as a Bryan firefighter.
Pickard died after being airlifted to UTMB in Galveston for critical burns. News 3's Nicole Morton gives us a closer look at his legacy.
This is our darkest hour in 142 years this organization has been in existence. planning funeral arrangements for two of their own.
The passing of Lieutenant Wallace just completely overwhelmed us. And with the passing of Lieutenant Pickard, it just came down upon us again.
It's an overwhelming and unimaginable reality that's crippled a community, but one that's changed a 142-year-old organization forever. Saturday afternoon.
We stayed at the side of the family of Lieutenant Pickard in Galveston.
But as the day progressed,
it became very difficult. As the news came out that we're aware of Lieutenant Pickard's passing.
54-year-old Gregory Pickard spent 32 years with the Bryan Fire Department.
I can't describe to you what went through this organization.
He succumbed to his injuries he sustained after going into a burning building to save the life of a fallen comrade.
One of his best attributes was a sense of humor.
He was a leader and a role model.
He's one of those guys here that everybody felt comfortable talking to.
And close friends say he was just 6 months away from retirement.
I feel very blessed to have spent much of my career around him. He would want us to continue on.
The measure of Pickard's impact he leaves behind is incalculable, and his bravery and heroism will not only be remembered, it will be honored forever. In Bryan, Nicole Morton, News 3.
A visitation for Lieutenant Pickard will be held this Thursday from 5 to 8 p.m. at Hillier Funeral Home in Bryan. Lieutenant Pickard's funeral service will be held this Friday at 10 a.m. at Central Baptist Church in College Station. A funeral procession will follow with burial at the College Station Memorial Cemetery.
And the public is also invited to attend a memorial service to honor both fallen firefighters. It will be at Central Baptist Church in College Station at 10 Wednesday morning. If you are not able to be there in person, we will stream this service live on our web channel, KBTX.com, as well as live on our sister station, the CW8. More details on the service can be found with this story at KBTX.com.
A relief account has been set up for donations to support the families of the men who lost their lives as well as the injured firefighters. KBTX Media, the Eagle, WTAW, and Candy 95 are collecting donations at any of the bank and trust locations in Bryan or College Station. Just ask for the BV Media Giving Back Fund. And we'll continue to follow this story and bring you the latest information on air and online.
And we will have more news, weather, and sports when we come back.
First with news in high definition, KBTX News 3.
Flags are flying at half-staff today to honor the lives and service of Lieutenants Eric Wallace and Gregory Pickard, who died fighting a fire at the Knights of Columbus Hall in Bryan Friday night.
Over the weekend, Governor Rick Perry ordered all American and Texas flags on state buildings in Bryan and the surrounding area lowered to half-staff until sunset on Friday. Local businesses have followed suit, including banks and car dealerships, and fire stations have done the same to honor their fellow firefighters.
And people across the state have gone above and beyond to support the men and women of the Bryan Fire Department over the past few days. But this morning, some young members of our community hand-delivered letters to the men of Bryan Fire Station 5. A first-grade class from Mary Branch Elementary School walked down the street in the rain to tell the firefighters thank you. The kids even left some extra hugs and some kisses at the station to help the men get through the days ahead.
As we head into the evening after a showery day across the Brazos Valley, a cold front approaches and may actually pop up a few more showers and thunderstorms here today. We'll talk more about that and take a look at Pinpoint Radar when we come back.
News 3 weather and the Pinpoint Forecast team brought to you by the Bank and Trust. Local bank, local bankers. And now, local weather.
A brilliant sunset over downtown Bryan this evening. Take a look close here at our live eye look. You can kind of see some of those clouds still hanging around, and as we go into the evening, we're thinking mostly cloudy skies work back in one more time here for the next 24 hours as a small chance of rain continues to work towards the area. Show you that in a bit, but first outside with those partly cloudy skies, 74 in Bryan and College Station. We got pretty warm out there, 76 to 78 for many of us, and one of the reasons why, south to southwest winds kicked in and a little sunshine after this morning's scattered shower activity. and really help to crank those temperatures on upward. Still a little cooler where we had the cloud cover linger around in the upper 60s to low 70s from I-45 points to the east, but take a look. You've got temperatures still hanging around 77 from Navasota to Hempstead back to Brenham, up around Cameron. Many locations flirted with 80 degrees this afternoon. We are going to be changing that up here as we head into the evening as well. So here's pinpoint radar. Things have settled down. We had showers for most of us. A couple tornado warnings popped up in Montgomery and San Jacinto counties a little earlier this evening. Those have since pushed down to the south as well. Watching a little bit of severe weather just outside of the Brazos Valley to our northeast, kind of east of Rusk there, moving over towards Louisiana. That's what we're watching because it's along that same line, that next cold front, that we may see an isolated storm pop up here. And what you're looking at right now through Temple, just south of Marlin, that little tiny blue line, that's our cold front working towards Milam and Robertson counties. So as that works into the Brazos Valley, it's not completely out of the question to find one or two more of these storms popping up. And that's what it looks like when you draw it out. Cold front kind of advancing our way, so that's going to keep our rain chances up. About a 20% chance. It's not a great chance this evening, but it is going to be there. One weather system passing across the Great Lakes with rain trailing all the way down to Texas. That's the one that's dragging this cold front in. We're already paying attention, though, to the Pacific Northwest. This area of cloud cover, that's our next upper low, and this one seems to bring a little more heat towards us, not in terms of actual heat, but in terms of the possibility of severe weather by Thursday. So it's something you want to make sure you keep up with in the forecast because things will be changing quite a bit this week. First change, back to sunshine for tomorrow. Here's your pinpoint forecast. Things are pretty quiet. Some high clouds start to work in from the west as we head towards your Wednesday. Look at Wednesday morning here. Computers having a hard time trying to figure out when the rain is going to come on Wednesday, but right now, light showers, some drizzle throughout the day, even though the pinpoint kind of clears us out. Not out of the question. If that holds true, we may only see temperatures in the upper 50s to low 60s. Then take a look at the panhandle. This is Wednesday night. That right there is the beginning of a line of thunderstorms pushing through the state that could bring severe weather here as early as Thursday morning. So again, something to watch for, but a lot of needed rain headed our way, it looks like, as well. For tonight, when you wake up, breezy, clearing, and a lot cooler. Temperatures down to the 40s. We'll drop down to 45. Start there at 7. 59 degrees by lunch. And again, no 80s out there tomorrow like we found today. Daytime highs much more seasonable in the mid to upper 60s. Heading through the rest of the week, though, 40% chance of rain is what it looks like on Wednesday. And it looks like a pretty good drink of water could be headed our way on Thursday. But again, much needed rain may come with a little bit of severe weather as well. And speaking of severe weather, and earlier, speaking of students over at Mary Branch, I had the privilege to stop by the 3rd grade this morning over at Mary Branch Elementary. They gave me a new shirt to add to the wardrobe. We talked about severe weather, tornado safety, and things like that to make sure they're ready for severe weather season coming up.
Wonderful. Great group of kids.
Yeah, and asked great questions, and they knew a lot of the answers before I had a chance to tell them.
Wonderful. That's fun. Yeah. Thanks, Joe.
No problem.
Well, coming up next in sports, the high school boys basketball playoffs get started tonight with A&M Consolidated and Huntsville.
Plus, we'll check in on the Aggie women's basketball team as they host Kentucky in a top 10 showdown tonight.
Sports is presented by Allen Honda, corner of Southwest Parkway and Highway 6. Allen's got your Honda. From the KBTX Sports Center, News 3 Sports starts now.
Looking to avenge their only SEC loss on the season. Howdy, Brazos Valley. The Texas Aggie women's basketball team is off to their best conference start in school history, and tonight they can run their winning streak to 9 with a win over the only team that has tripped them up so far this season in SEC play, and that be Kentucky. The game just got tipped off at the top of the hour. It is early in the first half. The Aggies are up 15-11. We will have highlights and post-game reaction at 10, as well as online on the sports page at kbtx.com. Following the Aggies and the Wildcats tonight on ESPN2. It is a top-ranked showdown between Baylor and third-ranked Connecticut in Hartford. Now, the Aggies are up one spot to number 10 in this week's Associated Press Women's Top 25. Kentucky is actually tied with Maryland at number 8. 5 SEC teams are in the top 15 this week. Tennessee's number 11. Georgia is 13, and South Carolina is 15. Baylor, Notre Dame, UConn, Stanford, and Duke, they make up the top 5. Aggie post Kelsey Bone scored 31 points and grabbed 10 rebounds against Florida last week, and she's been named the SEC Women's Basketball Player of the Week for the 4th time this season. Bone leads the league in scoring with 17.7 points per game this season, and also leads the conference in rebounds with almost 10 rebounds per game. It's a split week for the Aggie men's basketball team after a big win over Ole Miss at home. The Aggies struggled on the road on Saturday and suffered their 10th loss of the season, a 63-56 defeat to Vanderbilt. In hindsight, head coach Billy Kennedy said he'd approach the Commodores differently if there was a rematch.
We would have been better off playing small. We thought we would have a size advantage offensively, one-on-one in the post, and that wasn't the case in that game. If I had to play them again, I would play small and switch more on the perimeter, and I would also play a little bit more zone if we continue to get beat like that off the dribble.
The Aggies will be back on the road Wednesday when they take on the Auburn Tigers in Auburn, Alabama. In the Associated Press Top 25 on the men's side this week, Indiana remains number 1. The Hurricanes take over the number 2 spot after Duke was upset by Maryland, who is being coached by Mark Turgeon. Florida moves up to 5 and is the only SEC school in the poll. The Big 12's first entry is Kansas at 9. Kansas State is 13. They will take on West Virginia tonight on Big Monday, and Oklahoma State is 14. The Missouri Tigers are receiving votes that is, but not enough to crack the top 25 this week. High school boys basketball playoffs getting started tonight. The A&M Consolidated Tigers will be in Montgomery battling Spring at 7. The other Monday showdown will have an area team involved, and that would be the Huntsville Hornets. They will take on Pflugerville Conley at Hearn High School. That one's also a 7 o'clock tip. Update from Reed. The Aggies lead it 17-11. Whole lot of basketball to be played, but it's certainly nice to be ahead versus trailing. And, of course, we'll have highlights of Consol's playoff game tonight at 10-2.
All right, cool. Sounds good. Thanks, Daryl.
Well, look at what's coming up tonight at 10 is up next.
And Cheryl will be back with a look at increasing rain chances a bit later in the week. Coming up tonight at 10, see how some Bryan Firefighters say they have received an overwhelming amount of support from the community after those 2 firefighters were killed in that fire. A couple of injuries, too, from that fire on Friday night.
Well, it's a very spring-like day today.
Yeah, real warm out there. We had rain even across Brazos Valley. We're still watching pinpoint radar. Nothing out there now, but a couple more pockets of rain could pop up this evening. 20% chance until about midnight. Otherwise, tomorrow, sunny. Enjoy it. You've got more rain in the forecast, and it looks like a pretty good chance by Thursday.
Okay.
We got all excited about the Aggie women. They were way ahead. And
yeah, you wring your hands, and it's like it jinxed them, man. It's like
here, I'll do it again. Let's go the other way.
1917 Kentucky, but we said earlier, a lot of basketball being played.
They'll do it.
Lots of hand wringing too. At this point.
We'll be watching it.
It's sweaty.
That's our report for now. Thanks for joining us, and be sure to join us for News 30 tonight.
Good night.